naturally occurring timeless awareness, a single basic space. All things are present in such a way that they are in essence non-dual. Continuous dualistic perceptions arise as a display due to the dynamic energy of awareness. In what is called awakened mind, there is no duality of sensory appearances and what the mind imputes about them. Within enlightenment awareness, without transition or change, the universe of appearances and possibilities, whether of samsara or nirvana, arises with nothing to renounce or attain. In the experience of yogins who do not perceive things dualistically, the fact that things manifest without truly existing is so amazing they burst into laughter. Although sensory appearances do not exist, they manifest in all their variety. Although emptiness does not exist, it extends infinitely, reaching everywhere. Although dualistic perception does not exist, there is still fixation on things having individual identity. Although they have no basis, a continual succession of lifetimes manifests. Longchenpa, the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomena. This is Darren Littlejohn. Welcome to the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast, episode CN 100, part 5 of the Dysregulated Addict, Finding Spiritual Regulation series, Mindfulness for Addicts with ACES, the impact of ACEs on the brain and the path to addiction. Well, before we get into it, I've got a long dealio. I don't know if I'm going to get through. There's a lot of content. This is why Compassionate Recovery is 440 pages. There's a lot. But once you get the picture, then it makes sense, and then you have clarity. That's what this is about. So we're talking about all of these topics throughout this series. But I want to check in with you. How am I doing? Well, I'm in a new place, in a new space, and it's, I had to go through the bowels of the fury of hell to get here, and it was really difficult. It really took everything out of me. It took everything I had to maintain, wakefulness while driving, and to stay focused and maintain the safety of my crew, which is my 2 dogs and my cat. But the phone got too hot. The GPS didn't work. I didn't know where I was going. I was going uphill, full load. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't crack. I didn't break. And I'm here. I'm here to report that place and time, space and place, and a reasonable accommodation has everything to do with the ability to function on, say, a deeper, more mystical, spiritual, creative levels than, say, for example, being in a mega stress situation where oxytocin is just juicing your brain to the wall, to the mat, right? To the mat. And you can't, think too good when the prefrontal cortex is all wrapped up there in the ozone of stress. It's shut down. Your fight or flight. It's part of the evolution of mankind, humankind, personkind. Anyways, I'm out of my space, and I'm changing it up a little bit. So I'm on the camera mic, not on the studio mic. Yeah, but I'm halfway here. And we got another phase to the journey. But you know what they say in AA, we're all here because we're not all there. Yuck, yuck. I'm glad we can yuck it up. It's 100 episodes. I've been on weekly since Compassionate Recovery came out in May 2022. So I'm doing pretty good on an up level, and it seems to be that my prayers are working, my practice is working, my teacher said that you know if your practice is working by how your life is. And yeah, it's been really rough rides, a lot of rough rides. So I'm ready to sink in and get my spiritual roots in and do sustained practice in one location and just really honor. And I already feel welcome to the sacred place and the sacred space. It has everything to do with it. I'm telling you, I lived in Portland 13 years, and I took it for granted. I was with Tysa 13 years, 17 years, really took it for granted. There's a lot of things we addicts, myself, take for granted. However, when I left Portland, I have not found another place until now, and it's better. It's better. So this is great news, and I just want to drop that, good news instead of, always having the dramatic news. So I'm going to read through this, and, I just have so much content. I just tried to break it down and get it into correct language that makes sense. So let's see. Here we go. Remember our journey through the nervous system, the dance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, the weight of the allostatic load, the boundaries of the window of tolerance. Now let's dive into ACES, the unseen wounds. Well, we already know about ACES, so what I want to do is encapsulate, to sort of refresh where we are now. If you're jumping into this series a little bit later, you can go back through, and you can also just catch up in this moment. Understanding ACEs, that's adverse childhood experiences, physical abuse, emotional scars, a home where chaos reigns. These are ACEs, wounds that shape us, echoes of the storms we explored in the nervous system in all those past couple of episodes where we talked about stress and bearing it. Millions of us bear these scars, and yes, we know all the people who do the survey on the podcast.compassionaterecovery.us website. That's podcast.compassionaterecovery.us. That's the podcast website. Everybody who does the little survey on there is a 4+ on the ACE score. But there's a couple people who aren't, and that's bound to happen. But it's really a strong majority of people listening. And, let me just tell you something. I went to do this book, Compassion Recovery, and I was talking to some lady at a treatment center, one of the marketing ladies, and I started telling her about my book, and she shut me down. She goes, do you know about ACEs? And I said, no. And she goes, all right, then you don't know anything, so start there. And she turned around and walked away. And I got to say the same thing. So even though this information is out there and it's been out there, I'm really pushing it and being a champion of it because people just don't want to deal with it. And it's the God's honest, rock solid, core fucking truth. The neurobiology of ACEs, brain structure and function. Imagine your brain, a delicate machine wired for love, trust, and joy. Now imagine it altered, scarred by trauma. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, impaired. The hippocampus, the keeper of memories, wounded. It's not just science, it's a tragedy played out in the very fabric of our being. Okay, I know it's dramatic, but stress response system. But it's really a dramatic situation. I'm not making light of that either. But you always got to have a light attitude, people. Wear it like a loose shirt. Prayers for those in Hawaii, unbelievable, unbelievable. A child in constant fear. A body always ready to fight or flee. The stress hormones flood. The balance is lost. And the dance becomes a battle. It's the window of tolerance shattered and fragmented. It's not just biology. It's a daily struggle for peace and normality. It's like I always say from my old sponsor, Vess in Santa Cruz. Half my day is spent trying to aspire to the level of a normal person. ACEs in the path to addiction, increased vulnerability. Okay, we know all about that. I'm skipping. The science of ACEs and addiction, neurotransmitters. So this is what we kind of want to get a little bit of a grasp on the bigger picture. Dopamine, serotonin, words that sound distant, but they are the music of our minds. ACEs disrupt this music, turning harmony into discord. It's not just chemistry, it's the melody of our moods, our desires, our very selves. Brain regions affected. The amygdala, we've been talking about it. The fire alarm system. The nucleus accumbens. This one we didn't go too far into. But the amygdala, basically, the fire alarm. These become the chambers of our fears and our pleasures. And ACEs invade these chambers, cross our boundaries, alter our responses, shape our addictions. It's not just anatomy. This kind of body, speech, and mind integration, as the Tibetans talk about, if we look at, that's the perspective I look at things from, as also a trained Western psychologist. I remember my thesis advisor, Dr. Rhoda Linder, looked at me, she says, "You're already a psychologist, Darren, you're trained. You're doing psychology, you're practicing psychology." And that was in college. It was 20-something many years ago, and I've really been working on it. I feel like a psychologist still. ACEs and addiction, not just emotional scars, they leave tangible marks in the brain, altering its very structure and function. The effects are profound. So the combination of all of these aspects of who we are, encompassing our experience, really drives deep into how we perceive and how we function and how we build and what we become and the choices we make. So it's not just the brain, but it's also the architecture of our emotions and also our cravings and attachments. So mindfulness also affects the brainiac. Prefrontal cortex, this region responsible for decision-making, impulse control, executive function, which is basically like imagine that you're like the wizard behind the black curtain. You're the boss on the top of the Trojan robot, pulling the levers and pushing the buttons. That's executive function, ability to see what is what and what's going on and how to respond and deal and do the right thing, and live in accordance with our ethics and who we think we are and who we want to be. And not like in addiction, we live against what we know we are, and then we loathe ourselves. Well, don't die, people. If you got ACEs and you got all this trauma, that's what I'm here for. 25 plus years without a drink. I'm telling you what, I am not into addictive drugs. I'm healthy. My brain is working. It can happen for you. Get into mindfulness. Because we get challenged in things like self-regulation, planning, emotional control. So mindfulness helps us obviously focus our attention, our breath awareness. This strengthens the decision-making part of the brain, enhancing and revitalizing. Our brains are not dead. We just need to revitalize them. So we can rebuild and reshape and restore. So let's just talk about these three. Regulating neurotransmitters through mindfulness. And let me just segue, because the idea of the entire conversation is to get the macro view so that we can understand, obviously, macro is the big picture. So we do want to understand what happened in our ACEs on the brain level, and we do want to understand what happened with addiction on the brain level, and then we do want to understand what happens with mindfulness on the brain level. And even if you haven't built up your knowledge base yet, just drop in anywhere. Drop in right here. The brain's communication system relies on neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that transmit signals between neurons. ACEs and addiction disrupt this delicate balance, leading to profound consequences. Dopamine, the reward pathway. ACEs and addiction often lead to an imbalance in dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This imbalance skews the reward pathway, making addictive substances more appealing. Mindfulness practices such as mindful breathing and meditation have been shown to regulate dopamine levels, restoring balance to the reward pathway. It's a way to reclaim joy, pleasure, and satisfaction. It's not a piece content kind of level, right? And I'm not giving you a whole lot of new info here. I'm just framing it into the whole context, right? I mean, this mindfulness information has been out there for a long time, but I've been doing mindfulness since before it was cool, trust me. Serotonin, mood regulation, the neurotransmitter responsible for mood stability, is often affected by ACEs and addiction. The imbalance can lead to depression, anxiety, and emotional instability. Raise your hand if you're just like me. Mindfulness practices that emphasize compassion and self-awareness can help regulate serotonin levels, enhancing mood stability, emotional well-being, a path to inner peace, a soothing balm for the emotional scars that we bear, people. GABA, another one, calming the mind, inhibitory neurotransmitter, crucial role in calming the mind, reducing anxiety. Obviously, we can get a deficiency in GABA due to our ACEs and our addictions. We get even more heightened anxiety and stress. So mindfulness practices that focus on relaxation and body awareness can increase our GABA levels, promoting calmness and reducing anxiety. It's a gentle embrace for a restless mind, a promise of tranquility for those burdened by ACEs and addiction. So just a last thought on the healing potential of mindfulness. The regulation of neurotransmitters is not just about chemistry. It's about healing, transformation, and recovery. Mindfulness, just by itself, not including some of the other things we're going to talk about, offers a scientifically grounded approach to address the specific neurotransmitter imbalances caused by ACEs and addiction. Can you dig it? I mean, that's powerful, people. Powerful information. It's a way to heal the brain from the inside out to restore balance, harmony, and well-being. It's a promise of recovery, a promise grounded in evidence, guided by compassion. Are you with me? Get a copy of Compassionate Recovery online at Amazon.com, at Walmart.com, at BarnesandNoble.com. Go into your bookstore, go to your local bookstore and say, hey, say you're in Berkeley, say you're in Denver, New York City, Kansas City, Salt Lake City, San Antone, maybe you're in Paris, France, Barcelona, wherever you are, grab a copy of Compassionate Recovery. Grab a copy of the 12-Step Buddhist. This supports my work, people. I'm an artist. Okay, I have to create. It's all I do. So help out by reading the stuff and passing it on to others. To that end, you can also make a donation at the podcast.compassionaterecovery.us website to support the show. It's all appreciated. I'm going to get on. I'm going to get back with you next time. I may skip a week. I may not. We'll see how it goes with another major and powerful and perhaps the most important transition of my journey to date. Until then, people, peace out and namaste.